This show is proudly brought to you by the #Me Network.
Kia ora, and thanks so much for tuning in to episode 47 of Access Granted, our weekly Kiwi Tech and Media podcast. I'm Raj, my background's in film, design, media and technology, and Mike's background is explaining stuff, connecting people and getting things done. And you're here because you're a Kiwi that either works in or has a great passion for tech or media in New Zealand. Episode 47, let's catch up with Dan Randow.
So, the Sustainable Podcast. Machinations, malarkey and mischief is our watchwords on the Making This Podcast Sustainable. People are helping, and we're doing stuff, and you know we're all squeezing it into our day jobs.
Yeah,
we are getting there.
Slowly.
But it is slowly. But sponsors and Patreon, things will happen.
Absolutely. Right, this week we talked to Dan Randow. Now this time I was the one missing in action. So Mike caught up with Dan where they discussed what it means to be strategic, in inverted commas, and how on earth do teams work together, amongst other things. Enjoy.
Righty ho, here we are. We're in, I don't know what this place is called. What's it called?
It's Cafe Patisserie.
Cafe Patisserie, and that was the voice of Dan Randow, who's just handed me his card and says Collaboration Wrangler. So we will be finding out what a Collaboration Wrangler is in a moment. But first of all, Dan, nice to meet you.
Good morning.
What makes you happy?
Well, collaboration makes me happy.
Wrangling of?
Mike, collaboration when it actually happens. That's why I'm a collaboration wrangler.
Yeah. So do you know when it happens and when it doesn't happen, or when it's sort of in the name of it? People say it's collaboration, but it's not really.
Yeah, what is collaboration?
Yeah.
Oh, I've got a couple of ideas about that.
Vichy France. Isn't that collaboration?
PG France?
Vichy France.
Vichy France. Yeah, that's right. So it comes pretty tainted, that word. And so does wrangler. And I'm still using them both.
Cool. So I was just trying to think, when did we actually meet up?
Crumbs.
It was a while ago, but it's mists of time for me.
So are you allowed to dumb dirty words on this show?
Yeah, fuck it, let's go for it.
Knowledge management.
Was that in Christchurch? In Christchurch?
In Christchurch, I'm pretty sure.
Well, there's more dirty words there in Christchurch City Council.
Yeah.
So I was there and I met you.
We used to have knowledge management
Right.
meetups.
Yes.
Back in the day.
Sit and stroke our beards and manage the knowledge that we knew.
I didn't stroke my beard. We did workshops.
Cool. But at that time, other people might know you as well as the person that runs online groups.
Yeah, I am still the person who runs
so it's still
onlinegroups.net.
Yes.
Which
is the place where that's the one I use for the ninja groups and the open data-y things for the government. Not the government hack that missed that boat, unfortunately. But
that's right. You use that other swear words.
That's right. Yes. Google.
Yeah. But the
So is that still yours?
That is still mine.
Oh, I thought that was being handed over and changing and.
It's changing. Yeah.
Anything you can tell us about it, or is it watch this space?
Well, everything's under wraps, building up to a great big launch.
Okay. The massive version.
It's a mailing list manager, Mike.
It is. It does what it does.
Yeah, and I spent a lot of years collecting stories about how people use email and reply to all, and the pain that people experience with that, and listening to stories about how terrible email is and how we have to go away from email, and telling my own stories about how if you go away from email, really you just take the same queue of stuff and shift it to some other platform. And I've decided that no one actually cares enough about these things. No one actually finds it sexy enough for there to be terribly much of a viable business for me. There are a few people out there who do get it and who get mailing list managers, and so now we're just talking trying to get in touch with those people.
Yeah.
It's an open source web integrated mailing list manager in a world where we have two others. One's web integrated, but it's not open source.
Yep.
Google,
Groups.
you know and love.
Yep.
The Google Groups. One's open source, but it's not web integrated. Mailman.
Oh, yes.
And Mailman are doing Mailman 3, which is going to be open source and integrated. We've been open source and web integrated. We've been open source and web integrated for 10 years.
Stayed on the web, is that fair to say? It's always had a web interface.
It's always had a web interface. So from on the web, works like Mailman of our email. And it's open source. So
you can go and get it if you want.
You can go and get it and install
put it on your thing and
run it.
Run it internally.
Yes, and you can have us look after it and pay us a subscription to have a site. You can have multiple groups on your site. You can have it on your own domain. You can do your own styling. And one thing that I'm quite proud of that we just finally managed to implement is we have a like-in, not lock-in business model.
Okay, go on then. A like-in?
Like-in,
Explain
not
that.
lock-in.
Yeah, I got the not lock-in. What's the like-in?
Like-in. We want you to stay in because you like being in, not because you are locked in.
Okay.
So if you're a group administrator, you can see an export posts and export members button. And anytime you like, you can export all the posts in Inbox, which is an open standard format. And migrate to another platform. Take your users, take your data, and go. We want you to stay because you like being here.
That's the only way to do it, I reckon. But So do you think that it's still a constant conversation, isn't it? Oh, I'm flooded by email, inbox zero, and all that whole everything is still run by email, but they don't want to move to something that would help them.
You made me do it. You made me do it. Email keeps winning because it's the most versatile and universal system that we've got. It's incredibly non-specialised. So people go, I want something more structured for my tasks, and they try to drag people away from email. But if one person doesn't come, they will drag everybody back to email. And it's so versatile because and universal because everyone has an email address and an inbox. And all flavours talk to all flavours. So it is fantastic for one-to-one communication. It's fantastic, almost, too good, for one-to-many communication, but for many-to-many communication, the stuff, or collaboration, the stuff that you might do that we get around meeting tables for, it utterly sucks.
Doesn't it just?
Reply to all. and the reply to all usually goes through about 4 iterations with maybe if there's 4 or more people, and then it just becomes too painful because you never know. There's no consistent membership list. You never know if the same people have got this message, has got that message, and so the reason for this is that there's no entity for a group. In email, a group doesn't have what an individual does. A group doesn't have an email address and an inbox. So we have no choice but to go reply all.
But not universally. There are mail systems that have applied that, but it's not a universal standard that you can just expect.
You can have distribution lists, but they also gives you an approximation of an email address for a group, but not an inbox. And what mailing list managers do, what our system does, what groups, Google Groups do, is it provides an email address and an inbox for the group.
That everyone can go and look at.
Everyone can go and look at. It's the group's email. And when you look at it, you're completely focused on the work of this group, whether it's Hack Miramar or Open Government Ninjas or our project, whatever. And the rest of the world disappears. You focus on this one. And you can have multiple concurrent conversations because you can have some threading. So there's this subject line and a whole bunch of emails associated with this. And that subject line and a different conversation going on there. So that all our system does is augments email by providing for a group what individuals have in regular email, an email address and an inbox, and it makes the many-to-many collaboration much easier. The email comes into your inbox. And you can get a lot. Just by looking at the headers, without even opening the email, you can get a sense. You can just follow what's going on in the group. And you go, Dan and Mike are talking about email. Sweet. I'm glad they're taking care of that.
Yes.
Delete, because I know I can go there online and search for this anytime into the future. What were they actually saying about email back then?
Yeah.
On the 1st of April.
Yeah. Yes, 1st of April, that's right.
Anyway, for all of that, that's the thing that I'm really just...
That's what you've been quite known for, I suppose.
Yeah.
That's the shtick that I sort of, knowledge management, but then online groups for a little while. And now, on your cardigan, was it Collaboration Wrangler? Is that taking that thinking and the learning that you've taken from online groups, and then you're going to apply that in multiple different ways? Is that that's a question that I could be wrong with.
Yeah, in a way, online groups was the first expression of impulse to wrangle collaboration.
Okay, yeah.
That has been in me all my life. And, you can see culture and strategy and digital in my little hashtags now. I started with the digital. Because I thought, well, this internet thing is here and it actually makes it really easy for people to collaborate. And you don't need any fancy technology, it's free. Mostly you just need to know it's there and adopt these new habits a little bit, and you can have more collaboration. And, I thought I'd make a bit of business out of it, and that would give me a vehicle to get towards doing organisational consulting. Yeah. Which is what I'm on this earth to do.
Okay. Wow. I don't think I've ever heard that said before. I'm on this earth to do organisational consulting.
Yeah. So you haven't asked me... you asked me what makes me happy.
Yeah.
This is bigger than that.
Okay, then.
This is what I'm on this
Why are you
earth
here?
To do.
Why are you here?
I'm here.
Dan Randow,
Yep.
Why are you here on this earth?
I'm here to do whatever can be done, this is the wrangling, such that 2 or more people take one small step towards each other around some shared interest that they have. Like the next step. Usually it's a baby step. And
business focused or anything? Because the why you're here is, I presume, bigger than just the focus on the offices and the pods and the
well,
big
I'm not
buildings.
a couple counsellor. But that's another world where that
happens.
It's a good thing to do, because you tend to get. I mean, I do think a bit about how people function in couples and what can be learned from that in organisations, and you do get these patterns in couples where it's sort of, how would I say? I'm trying to get you to meet my need, and you won't, of course. You're trying to get me to meet your need, and I won't. Of course, and so we sort of take a bit of we both start trying to kind of grab and extract harder and become more disappointed in each other. And that can be a self-fueling negative feedback thing. And if that can be reversed a little bit, and I think, well, what is it that you're saying that I could actually really hear? It's actually about you. And I could say yes to, in a way that would also work for me. And if I can come up with that, especially while you're feeling a bit, you might be feeling a bit on
the defensive?
On the defensive, or on sort of a bit of alarm maybe, or I'm perceiving me as a bit of a threat. If I can actually get you and say yes, here's this one thing that I could actually say yes to, you might quite like that. You might feel a bit, you might trust me a little bit more and feel a bit safer. You might come up with one thing. But it's not this sort of... I'm not talking about the Waltons.
I don't know what that means.
The Waltons, that TV family where everyone's just, good night, John boy.
Oh, yeah, I know it from parody more than I've actually ever seen it, but I know what you mean.
And this in our work. We're trying to make this website, or whatever it is.
We're trying to do this thing. Let's all do one small thing to get closer to it. And what are the common hurdles then to that? What's in your experience?
Trust is
too much trust.
I think here's a little metaphor that I'm using. That trust, the life of trust is a bit like a game of snakes and ladders.
Okay.
With no ladders.
Jesus.
Only snakes.
You reckon?
The trust is way easier to break than it is to make.
Okay, so you can go
You know,
tacking along, and then you hit a snake, whatever it is, and down you go.
Yeah.
However far you go.
we humans we're real sensitive to danger and threats. We're kind of wired and hormoned like that, and brain structured.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of yeses to match a no.
Yeah. So 6 rolls of the dice will get you 6 spaces forward, but 1 no might get you 6 back.
One no can take you from like
Yeah. Well, 30 back or whatever.
yeah. Yeah.
So I'd say lack of trust. So within teams that work, the ones that you... And do you work just with technical teams? Or anybody? Like a couples counsellor, as you say, but...
Yeah, so
business,
organisations, business, projects, within teams, between teams. I'm focusing on digital space because that's what I know, and these are your listeners are people who I know, and so I get access to this community. And digital is, it's creating a lot of pressures in various ways, and so it's creating this, and people under pressure. External pressures tend to make life a bit harder for trust.
Yeah.
Make it a bit more important. So
within your classic IT departments, there's a lot of expectation, a lot of pressures put on them. Therefore, there's happy hunting ground for the consulting that say, if nothing changes, it's going to break, or potentially it's going to break.
Everyone will tell you, I reckon, and I can say this because I've been doing research. I went around IT and digital and asked people, what are the things that have the most material impact on project outcomes or results, and they say team. If you look at startups, Dave Moskovitz has got this lovely slide that says what are the 5 things that investors look for: product, market, team, and team. But who's focusing on this? If you go to the lean startup people, they say, oh yeah, we're validating. We don't want a business to be based on any assumptions. We're validating the problem-solution fit. We've got all the data and evidence.
Yep.
Develop that, and we're validating the product market fit, and we're validating what is that? Didn't you say the most important thing is the team? Where's your validation? Oh no. Well, we just...
We'll assume that works.
And the startup breakup stories. Startup failure stories, I've been collecting these as well, they sound like couple trajectory stories. The catastrophic failures of startups are all team failures.
Yeah.
The honourable ones, we've got a great team, we pivot, we reach the end of it, damn, didn't make it, but we gave it a really good try. Those are not teams, they're honourable failures.
Yes.
Everyone congratulates you. The catastrophic ones, I go, I can't really talk about this, or it's too painful, painful, ripples go out. And so I think, there's got to be a point where the assumptions that are getting made as the team forms can be validated. And, it sounds a fancy language for having a decent conversation. Really, and putting a bit of pressure on that conversation. So what do you imagine might come out of this startup, Mike? And what will you do with that? How will it be valuable for you? What are your motivations? Who do you think of? Where are the voices that are influential
Where are the voices
on
in
you?
my head?
Yeah. What would your partner say?
Yeah.
What would who are your role models? Who are your mentors? Who would you like to be like? And what would they say? Let's really explore what you're bringing, what's bringing you here. And you watch me do that too. So you should be party to my exploration.
Oh,
we're going to be in
yes.
a startup together, and I should be a witness to yours.
Yeah.
So that we both learn about our own motivation, we learn about each other's, because these are the people we're going to get into. We're going to start having kids and a mortgage like tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Working on our product.
So why do you think
market.
then, and you're right, I agree anyway, you're right. There's two of us at the table agree. That's 100% of the people. Therefore, we're right.
Yeah.
That it's all about people and team. What is it that has... What's the question I'm trying to think? It's people don't focus on it. It's not that they don't focus on it. That's unfair. They naturally fall back to when times get tough, or even when times are fat cats, they fall back to other things. It's the natural instinct to say, oh, well, the team's fine, or we won't look at it, and then it drifts away and people start writing manuals and processes and focusing on other things. Why do you think that is? The big question.
Because...
And we can always edit out the pauses, so that's good. Have a thumb.
Because it's not, like talking about relationships is not well developed in our culture, in our civilization. Being real with each other in the here and now, trying to find a way to take one step forward together, I think it's underdeveloped.
I blame my parents too.
It's not hard to go there. And we learn how to relate with each other when we're the most open to learning, which is when we're tiny. We're incredibly elastic neurologically and cognitively. And we learn through the influence of those who are most significant to us. And all imprinted on us, and then that kind of comes out of us again in the way we relate. And I think that's what I call culture, really. It's the way people relate and the values and beliefs. And when you and I, we get on pretty good, and you're a good mate, but we're not in a pressure cooker together.
No, very true.
Give us a startup, give us something where we've invested, a year of our pain and sweat, and it's starting to go different, pear-shaped, and we're starting to have different ideas. The unconscious is going, significance. It can't tell the difference between you and my parents, and I start to panic. My responses to you become exaggerated, and I start to be able to get reactive and respond in old ways that were trained into me back then. So it's a great opportunity, actually, if you can, for us to have an incredible breakup. That could happen really fast because it's like petrol, gets poured on the flames all the time. It's also a great opportunity to do something a bit different. If we can actually, if I can take enough of a pause, look after myself and my panic well enough that I can say, I think what you're wanting here, Mike, is me to come and look at this new opportunity with you, and you go, you got it. And it's actually quite, you're getting some healing there. So the significance is there between you and me. You're expecting me to attack you, because that's what's happened to you before when there's been a crisis. And instead you get me saying yes. I'm actually taking the time to listen to you, say yes, we're going to go and do this. And, it's sounding like I'm saying that work is therapy, and it's exactly what I am saying. We do this thing for the majority of our life, and why do we do it? Not for money. All the research tells you that. We do it for self-realisation. We do it to grow. It's this stage on which we enact our life drama and journey, and so why not make a bit more of that? Could you ask me this following question? This is all very theoretical, Dan. I tap the table.
That's right.
This is all very theoretical, Dan.
This is all going to get edited
What
out.
do you actually bloody do?
So all of that you talked about is something that I rarely see in organisations, and potentially it's just theoretical. So what do you actually do with that? How do you take that, and what would people see you do?
Yeah. So I'll give you one little example. I've been doing some workshops recently around communication between between occupational groups. I've been doing some workshops recently.
What does that mean? What's an occupational group?
I've been doing workshops on communication between occupational groups in tech. So the classic three are the engineers.
Oh, I see. Yes.
The creatives.
Yeah.
And the business people.
Yeah.
These are three quite distinct occupational groups.
Yeah.
They've got different abilities, different priorities, different ways of seeing the world, and you need all three. And if you keep going, you find more. You find the testers and the sysadmins and the DevOps and the UX. You find quite a few specializations.
Yep.
Here, and sometimes, and you need the tension between these is necessary to attend to all the many things that need to be attended to in a tech project of any kind.
Yep.
However, sometimes these tensions can, and usually they're constructive, sometimes they can become unconstructive. Yeah, I start to have sort of make incorrect assumptions about what you're really trying to do, and you just challenge what I'm doing so frequently that I'm starting to believe you actually want to undermine what I'm doing. Well, if you would just
what
understand
do you do
why I'm saying this a bit more.
What do you do?
What do I do?
So there's all this crap out there.
Yeah.
These people are doing stuff.
Yeah.
What is it that you?
So what I do in the workshops, and I tend to work in a physical space with people, with everyone in the workshop using their body.
Okay.
So the first thing I would do is, one thing I would do is I'll get everyone standing on a space in the middle of the room, usually with a horseshoe of chairs. I think of it as a stage. In these three occupational groups, the one that they identify with the most, and they have a good yak with each other about what their culture is, what it's like to be in that group.
So the engineers are all having a good yarn.
Yes.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And the designers are having a good yak with the designs, and the business people having a good yak with the business people.
Okay.
And so everyone's getting a chance to have their own culture kind of reinforced, and also but made explicit, made visible a little bit. I ask some questions like, who are your role models? Or what do you consider as the most important thing in a project? Or and what is the value that you bring? And so they have a chat with themselves in these little groups, and then they begin to listen to what's going on in the other groups. So they have a bit of a readout, and it becomes perhaps a bit of cultural tourism. You know? So to say, oh, that's what they're on about.
Yes.
And so people learn a bit about their own culture, and they learn a bit about the culture in these other groups. And then you can have a bit of a conversation. So what do we, as developers, want from you business people? What do we as business people want from you developers? And when you get a bit of this going, and you've got a real differentiation between these groups, then you can, one thing you can do is a role reversal.
Pretend to be.
It's not. I think it's more than pretend. It's actually go and be. So we have a real live group of engineers here, expressing what's important to them and what it's like, their values, their culture. And so you might look at them and say, well, what planet are you on? Well, this is the planet. Come visit. So you go and you actually be an engineer for this moment. It's not pretend. You actually fill your being with the being with being an engineer, as you've just seen it demonstrated. It's all right there in the room. Everyone's attention's on it. You can go and be it, and you can begin to express those things as an engineer yourself. We all have this capability within us. We all have this culture. It just allows that to grow a little bit, at the same time as developing a sense of others. You know what it's like to be you. You're really different from me. Quite different. And now it really feels like to be you for a moment. And you're having a sense of what it feels like to be me, a designer or and carry on the conversation. As an engineer, what I want from you, business person, is this.
So that process, that's not the whole process, I take it.
It's just an example.
That's one of the things that you do. The goal of the workshops, though, is to bring people together and for them to around a common goal, a project or a startup or a thing. So you're just bringing those people together one step closer.
One step. Yeah.
So that the thing is more loved than it possibly was before they took that step together.
So that the work can get done. I'm a bit worried when you say bring people together, because it's It's not the Waltons that we're trying to create here. We're not trying to create one big, happy, unified family. We're actually trying to work with difference. So it's necessary to be clear about the difference and clearly differentiate the different groups.
Yeah.
And then look at what is necessary for, what is helpful for them to do in relation to each other. Assumptions are back. Assumptions are a dirty word, but you actually need to be able to make assumptions, and then they need to be accurate, because otherwise you have to check things out with people all the time, and that's extremely expensive. So I need to be able to know what I can rely on you for, and I need to be able to anticipate what your view on a certain thing is going to be, so I don't have to check it out with you. But those assumptions, if I'm making inaccurate assumptions, such as you're going to just want to interfere with what I'm doing for the sake of it, well, that might be it. It might be accurate. That's those inaccurate assumptions. They lead to. If I'm making an inaccurate assumption that you're going to interfere with me for the sake of it, and I become defensive and a bit hostile, and I do something like the idea that I'm trying to undermine you, and so you're going to retaliate, and there's that negative feedback loop. The positive feedback loop is much more efficient because it's based on much more accurate assumptions.
So can you give me an example of a team who's a role model for that team or that project or that thing? You go, there you go, they do it. And of course there may be an internal team that we've never heard of. There might be some project deep in the bowels of DIA that you work with, and they'll go, well, them, but we can't see them. Is there anybody publicly that you can think of that you can go, them? They are an example of someone who wouldn't call us.
Oh no, everyone would call us.
Well, fair enough.
It's a really...
Well, nothing's perfect, you're right. To be fair, no one is perfect.
The team success stories that I've heard, and there are plenty of those, they tend to begin with really good selection process. And, there's nothing, it's true. Getting the right people in the team together is a huge factor determining how the team's going to function. So the classic story is that the four of us got together for this startup. We actually knew each other because we'd all worked at that company before and that company, but we'd known each other for years. Yeah. And we knew what we could expect from each other. There's those assumptions right there. We knew that we could make accurate assumptions about each other. So there are plenty of examples of those around town. Everyone can think of one.
Yeah. And
I don't think it's the only thing that matters. There are other things like processes, like it's fantastic to have really good processes in your team. I don't do that. There's amazing agile people.
Brenda and Sandy. Who were on the...
That's right.
Probably 2 weeks ago.
That's right. They were.
Yeah.
It's probably, yes. Of nomad age.
The chaps. Yes.
And so I don't do the process so much.
Yeah.
But that's really important. Leadership is really important, and I don't do... there's plenty of executive coaches and leadership coaches. I don't do that, but I might do leadership development workshops. And of course, strategy. The third thing on my third hashtag.
Culture, strategy, and digital. So, strategy.
Yeah. People say...
What does that mean, buddy?
Strategy... It's a really good question, because one of the things that strategy suffers from is that it means different people, there's no stable definition. My definition for strategy is it's an action plan with a rationale.
So I'm going to go and buy that coffee over there. That's a plan, that's a thing. I might have stamps because... And I can't think of anything because I'm not going to buy one, but...
Oh, well, okay. I'll coach you in the strategy.
Go for it.
Coffee.
Give me a strategy around my coffee purchase.
So you've got a project, buy a coffee.
Yep.
And it's going to have a result.
Yes.
What will the result of that be?
A satiated Michael.
You can't. They're not selling satiated Michaels up there. I don't see any.
No, that's true.
So what can you give me something that actually is more something that I could validate with evidence that will be a result of you going to buy that coffee?
Okay, I will have a coffee in front of me.
Good.
And I will have less money in my account
That's true.
somewhere.
Good. So that can be validated.
Yeah.
That will be the result. So there's an action and a consequence. The action is a verb, the consequence is a noun. It's a change in the state of the world. It's an asset thing. Round we go again. You will use that result, that coffee, in some way. How will you use it?
I will drink it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I hope
So
so.
this asset is now consumed
Yes.
by new action,
Yep.
the drinking.
Yes.
What will be the result of that?
At some point, there's going to be a satiated Michael.
Satiated. How will we measure that?
You will
Can
ask
you be
me.
more specific?
You will ask me,
Right.
Mike, are you...
Okay. Good.
No?
So we will have a Mike who will willingly report.
I will
that he
willingly report.
is satiated.
Yes.
Yeah. Good.
Right.
That's measurable.
Yes. So what's the strategy in that? It's the
What will you? That's an asset.
Okay.
Is it a benefit? I mean, one of the things is that to think about benefits for strategies. They all ultimately result in some benefits, and there's broadly, and you can't really go on with this strategy after that's the end of it. After you've got a benefit, because that's the end of it.
Yes.
So, and you can tell benefits when you've got something social, cultural, environmental, or economic. I think in health and nutrition, that's probably a benefit.
So satiated
I
probably
would
is the covered word that would put me into the I'm now a happy chappy and that's... So that would be the benefit.
I mean,
cultural? No?
You might say, well, this satiated asset, satiated
Potentially,
Mike
I don't
is
need
an
this coffee,
asset.
of course.
And that you use that asset. So over the day, Mike is thinking about his nutrition and satiation and well-being, and so this asset then is used as part of Mike's management of his nutrition over the day, and the result of that is a benefit to Mike, that you've got a Mike who's like, well functioning and healthy
And awake and doing stuff.
Yeah. So
Okay.
part of I don't make strategy.
Oh, all right. Well, you've got it written on your card.
Oh, well, I do strategy.
You do strategy, but you don't make it.
I help, because I don't really know your business. I don't know your environment. I'm not a genius. You need a different consultant if you want to be told what to do. What I will help
They
you
come
do
in
is
blue suits, mate.
clarify
Yeah.
your strategy, just like I've been doing there.
So take
Your rationale
those
for what
people
you're doing.
through the process, but they will quote unquote do the work. Exactly. Like
Well, I'll write it down and say, so you do these, what are you doing now? What do you do now? What do you actually do? What's the result of that? How is that result used for a new action? What's the result of that? How does that lead to benefits and for who? And I map all that stuff, and then, and if there's a bunch of you in the room, get some consensus around that, and then we say, well, what do you make of this? What are there benefits are there people here or stakeholders that you would like benefits that are not being generated in this way? Or are there any weak linkages? So if you were saying to me, like we found a weak link before, you were saying that the result of going up for coffee with a satiated Mike, it might not be. Coffee might get knocked off the table. Just because we make these things, does it mean people actually use them? Or do they use them in the way that we expect them to? Let's validate, let's get evidence. Validate with evidence from the real world, with data, the linkages between these actions and the consequences. And when your strategy becomes more clear and you can validate it, that puts you in a good position to start thinking creatively about how to improve it. You can come up with a new idea for your strategy, and we're going to validate that. Back to the validation.
Do many people do this? And I don't mean use your services, but take that approach of validation. That's a weighted question.
If you look around at the things that are called strategies, you would have to conclude that people don't validate them, because you can't. They don't tell you.
Because they have lots of words called satiated Mike.
They have a whole lot of words, that are vague, unspecific. They're not they don't map the consequences that they think are going to happen from their actions. And they have lots of general principles, which are lovely to have, like let's be a good employer. Let's minimise our environmental footprint. Those are nice guiding principles. They're not strategies. They don't tell you about an action plan or a rationale. Yeah.
And I generally don't know the answer to this. Do startups start badly? Do they suffer from a lack of strategy? Do large organisations? Do ancient organisations? Is there any one you can go and the worst culprit are the one-man band that starts up, or the worst culprit for these are I'm going to say IBM, because they've been around for such a long time and they just have lost focus, or not, in your experience?
I think startups are a somewhat special case because they exist in the context of such high uncertainty. I've spent a bit of time comparing the strategy mapping, clarifying process that I use with Lean Startup. There's actually quite a bit in common with them. But I wouldn't actually go and do strategy with a startup. I think usually in startup, everyone else is, and it's fantastic for the rapid iteration. Yeah. You're just iterating so rapidly at the start that this, hypothesis test, learn, build, implement.
Why start a business without a strategy, though? And I know you've used the word startup, and it's now a weighted special word, but really you're just starting a business like you would start a cafe or anything else. There's nothing special about startups. Why would you not?
It's probably coming back to that founder motivation and vision question. Some of the startup breakup stories that I've heard are happen when the big opportunity to take a big chunk of investment, sell a big part of the company comes. And you get some people who will say, yep, that's great, this is where we want to go, and other people will say, well, no, this is not what I ever...
It's not what I've done it for.
Well, not what I've done it for. Yeah, so I think where strategic thinking is helpful is when the founders are getting into the thing together. We're going to create the startup, and then so we're going to work in the startup and we're going to create a result. It's going to be when we work in the startup, we're going to create a result that's going to be in the startup, and then we are the users of the startup. You're going to use this result. I'm going to use this result, and we're going to use it to get a benefit. What's that going to be? How are you going to use this thing to get a benefit? Well, you might want to sell it, get a big chunk of equity, a big chunk of capital.
Cash.
I might want to have it as a symbol of meaning for me, or contribution to my community, or something, or learning. Let's get clear about, let's take a strategic view around the whole startup to provide a good frame for it to exist in.
So why is it here? It's always related to the why the 2, 3, 4, whoever founders are there. Yeah. I think we're going to have to stop there. We could go on for ages, Dan. And for those that want to get in touch with you, and there's the challenge there with have a chat with Dan and coffee. He will tell you the world, but also don't just have a chat. This is a deeper conversation that most young businesses and established businesses, particularly going through change, or they perceive that they're going to hit some sort of transition, should engage with Dan. How on earth do they do that then, Dan? How do they get in touch with you, mate?
Okay. They get in touch with me at Dan Randow on Twitter.
On the Twitters, yeah.
Randow.co.nz.
Randow. Spell it Dandow. Randow.
That's right. And Dan at Randow.co.nz if you will stoop to email. And here's a free offer. Here's a free special offer, and you can, when you do contact me by one of these means, you can say, Dan, I want to take up your offer. My offer is, if we have coffee together, you will get something valuable, some result that you can take away from the coffee with me that you can use in your world to get some benefit.
Wow. Oh, that's very cool,
That's
mate.
my commitment.
We'll be in touch. We'll be in touch. Access granted, definitely. Thank you so much, Dan. That was an insightful, an intriguing conversation. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're really welcome. Thank you.
Well, with Dan, you know you're going to be challenged and end up thinking about the world in a different manner. So I hope you all feel as happy and as challenged as I do. And if you want to get in touch with Dan, you know you'll be welcomed with open arms. And next week we talk to Lucy from Simmons Stewart, and she also helps run the Wellington chapter of a wonderful series of events and podcasts called the Moxie Sessions.
Oh, right. So she's part of that crew?
Yes.
No
This is
idea.
all new down here in Wellington. So anyway, we'll catch up with Lucy next week around, not just around the Moxie Sessions, but also IT lawyering type stuff.
Find us on the social networks, of course. Look out for our podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Google+. It's still going, right? Google+, yeah.
It's still going. Google's I.O. conference is coming up, probably, I've got soon actually.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there'll be announcements. Photos will disappear after photos. Hangouts is already Hangouts. The stream, I don't know.
It's up to them, right? They're running the place.
Yeah, well,
we just get to use it.
Yes, exactly.
And you can find myself, NZ Raj, on the Twitter as well, and Mike at Miramar Mike. Or you can email us at accessgranted@hashtagme.co.nz. Hey, and all for the other hashtag goodness, such as the updates and news and prizes, much, much more, go on to hashtagme.co.nz. Thanks for your time, and see you next Tuesday with the Kiwi tech people sharing their own stories. Ka kite anō.
hashtagme.co.nz